Now, our top story this morning, how would you feel if you were disabled and wanted to visit Guernsey, but you were told the mobility scooter you were renting wouldn't be able to be placed in your hotel room or any other area of the hotel that you're paying for? Or the manager of the hotel had previously assisted those with accessible needs, but couldn't this time because of a lack of staff. And he told you your needs were not a priority. One individual has experienced exactly this, and we revoiced their thoughts with BBC Radio Guernsey's Michelle Daniels.
I felt frustrated when I was told I couldn't have a scooter in my own hotel room. I don't want to stay somewhere where I won't be looked after. I'm glad I've found somewhere I can stay where I can keep the scooter, and I'm happy there is access to scooters so I can see the island. I'd be mad if I wasn't able to rent a scooter because I broke my hip recently. There needs to be more accommodation to help those who are disabled.
So how accessible is Guernsey? Is this a common trend? Well, out of the 20 hotels we looked into, only 2 could accommodate those with accessibility needs. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, what is it like for those who live in Guernsey and experience these streets and pavements and restaurants and shops on a regular basis? Tony Pollett joins us on the line now, who's a wheelchair user. And Sue, his wife, is with us too, who is helping out and sees these things for first hand. Good morning to you both. You've recently had your wheelchair upgraded, Tony, which has allowed you to access more areas of town. What was it like before your new wheelchair?
Before the new wheelchair, we really didn't go to town unless we really needed to. It's so difficult to get around the town that it's really not worth the effort, to be honest.
So you felt that actually it wasn't worth your time even bothering trying to get into town because it was so difficult?
Yes, it's very physically demanding on it as well, to be honest. It's just the cobbles in town, and that is part of Guernsey, we understand, but they relayed the cobbles a few years ago, and they could have put 2 level strips, tram lines all the way through the town if they wanted to, and this would not only help wheelchair users, but ladies or men with buggies for their children as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like quite simple solutions potentially. So, I mean, how do you find those alternatives? How, what do you do instead of like going to town? Does this mean you're resorting to shopping online a lot more?
Basically, yeah. We used to. It was the only really alternative to it. It was because you couldn't get into a lot of the shops in town. Don't make it accessible to people with disability. Some are very good, but others, it's as if they really don't want you to bother go shopping in their shop, to be honest.
And how does it make you feel knowing that you haven't been accommodated for?
Disappointed, to be honest. It's you think that in an island that's supposed to be so affluent that more effort could have been made.
Yeah, well, let me bring in your wife, Sue. Sue, obviously, you're kind of there with Tony. You see these things day to day. How does it make you feel, Sue, that Tony hasn't been accommodated for?
It's the other way round, actually. I'm the one in the wheelchair.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah, so often I have been left outside shops while my husband goes in.
Yeah.
And they'll bring what I want to see outside to me. They're more than happy to do that, but they're not happy to help lift the wheelchair up their high step or, get you in the shop.
Right, okay. So there's, I suppose, like looking at our shops, there's even things like not all of them have lifts or things like that. Things that maybe in the UK we take for commonplace in our shops.
That's right. Often here, I'll stay on the ground floor and my husband will go up.
So you got to
what I want to see.
Yeah. So you got to trust your husband that he's got good taste in what you're shopping for.
Yes, and
Yeah.
there's another problem for me.
So, what is the answer for you? I mean, I suppose you're not calling for kind of everything to be changed in Guernsey. I know, like Tony said, there is a lot of tradition in Guernsey, and our town is very pretty. But what
Right,
what
we
kind
don't
of
want to lose the history of our island. We do love it, but I think there are some shops that could have another door open, that they could have just a small ramp.
Yeah. So just a small ramp, it would be enough to
Yeah,
accommodate your
it's
needs.
just so the wheel, like my husband, my carer, then hasn't got to lift the wheelchair up the steps or some are that high that he would have to ask somebody to help him to lift the wheelchair.
Yeah, it would just make your lives just so much easier. Well, let me thank you very much, Tony and Sue Pollitt there. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Let me bring in Karen Blanchford. She's the director of the Accessible Town Project. She's part of the Guernsey Disability Alliance, also part of Access for All, and partnership director for Wheel Matere. Karen, this is kind of completely your territory here. We've heard there Tony and Sue's individual frustrations. So what changes are being made to accommodate those with accessibility needs from your perspective?
Oh, thank you. Morning, Nick. Sorry, I hadn't heard this Tony and Sue's story before, so thank you for them sharing because we often, don't hear as in Guernsey doesn't hear about the difficulties that people are having, whether that's wheelchair user, whether that's dementia, whether that's autism. So access in all its widest terms is something that we've been working on for 5 years now. So we're a bunch of volunteers at Access for All, but we work closely with the disability officer. And the things that we've been trying to change, firstly, we're trying to get as many people on the island trained in access. In fact, we have our next course on the 13th and 14th of October. And the idea is that surveyors, architects, builders, shop facility managers, anybody that's involved in buildings comes on the course for 2 days. It's an accredited course and learns more about improving access. As before, access not just for wheelchairs, but people maybe with dexterity needs or lighting, hearing, visual impairments. So we've trained 49 people so far, but I'm quite surprised this time. We've actually got a couple of places. We've had some people drop out, and I'm really surprised that people aren't knocking on our door for the course because with the legislation coming and access being a requirement of that in 5 years, we thought people would really be keen to start learning what can they do to make their organisations, their shops, their restaurants more accessible.
Well,
So
let me just ask you. Hopefully, more people will sign up to that. Having heard it on the radio this morning, you mentioned shops and restaurants there. Let's talk hotels for a moment. As I said before, out of 20 hotels that we looked into, only 2 could accommodate those with accessibility needs. What's your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, we're not surprised because one thing that the States has done really well is get Access Able over. In fact, I think they're over at the moment. And Access Able, if anyone's listening, is online. Put Access Able Guernsey in, and that tells you about all the accessibility needs and accessibility guide to the hotels, restaurants, cafes, everything on the island. Duzanes, Frosted House, etc. And unfortunately, we've seen an increase in accessibility, but still not enough. So we now have seen, self-catering adapt. We've seen a couple of hotels adapt when they do renovations, but we're still not seeing that take up. We get regular calls from people asking to come to the island and the other islands and asking how accessible are they, and also because we have the knowledge, asking us truthfully how accessible they are. So what something says, or when somebody says we have accessible rooms, are they really wheelchair accessible? Have you got a turning circle? Is the bathroom okay? Can you get to the restaurant easily? You know, is there space to move? So for anyone listening online, yeah, Access Able is the place to go locally to look at access guides. But I'm afraid to say Guernsey has a long way to go, and hence, unfortunately, the need for legislation to try and encourage people when they're renovating or changing anything or doing anything in their hotel to consider making adaptations.